Right now, down in southern Utah, there is a fire that is literally larger than Salt Lake City,
Yeah.
and it's burning completely out of control.
Yeah, it's a massive crisis.
But the most terrifying part is that the exact same extreme weather feeding those flames is actually keeping our physical firefighting planes grounded. You can't fly over it.
Right. It's too dangerous.
Exactly. So how do you fight a monster that you can't even get near? Well, you have to fight it with data. Welcome to today's deep dive. It is Sunday, June 28, 2026.
And we have a lot of ground to cover today.
We really do. Our mission today is to sift through this massive stack of morning briefings for you. We're talking global environmental crises, billion-dollar tech deals, educational policy, and even some truly astonishing medical breakthroughs. We are pulling out the vital signals from all this noise.
And as we go through this, you'll notice we are tracing a very specific, I'd say fascinating tension today. We're looking at how our absolute most advanced technology is just crashing headfirst into raw, messy physical realities.
Yeah, it really is a collision.
It is. Whether it's a natural disaster or, the limitations of a global supply chain, the digital world just cannot ignore the physical one. But there's a distinctly hopeful arc to these insights today.
I'm glad you mentioned that because some of this news is heavy.
It is, but as you'll see, the solutions to our biggest global threats might actually start with our own biology.
Well, let's start with that collision in Utah. The Cottonwood Fire was sparked by human activity on June 22nd near Beaver, and it has just exploded to roughly 92,000 acres.
That scale is just hard to wrap your head around.
It really is. And right now, 0% containment. Governor Spencer Cox declared an emergency and completely banned 4th of July fireworks.
Which, as you can imagine, has sparked an entirely separate online debate, right? Safety versus tradition.
Oh, absolutely. But the sheer mechanics of fighting this thing are wild. The National Weather Service issued a particularly dangerous situation, red flag warning. The winds are just too high for planes.
So they have to adapt.
Right. Ground crews are leaning entirely on predictive fire spread modeling, satellite hotspot detection, and drone mapping, just to track a blaze that is moving way faster than they can physically run. It's like we are fighting nature with data.
That's the ultimate paradox of this moment, right? When nature overwhelms our physical defenses, technology serves as this invisible safety net. And we're seeing that exact same reliance on data playing out internationally today.
You mean in Venezuela?
Yeah, but playing out underneath the rubble instead of above the smoke.
The situation there is just devastating. We're looking at twin earthquakes in northern Venezuela magnitudes 7.2 and 7.5.
Which is incredibly powerful.
It is. The coastal state of La Guaira really took the brunt of it. The death toll has unfortunately passed 920, with more than 3,000 injured. But there are U.S. and El Salvadorian rescue teams on the ground right now, basically racing the clock.
And those El Salvadorian crews actually just pulled a 15-year-old girl from the 9th floor of a collapsed building.
Which is a miracle. But they aren't just out there using shovels and dogs, right?
Yeah. Oh, far from it. I mean, disaster response at this scale is a pure high-level technology deployment now. When an earthquake of that magnitude hits, local communication networks are instantly destroyed.
Right. You can't just pull out a cell phone and call for backup. The cell towers are gone.
Exactly. So international teams rely entirely on portable mesh communications just to coordinate.
I always hear about mesh networks in these tech briefings. How do those actually work for you when the wider internet is completely severed?
Think of it kind of like a digital bucket brigade. Instead of every radio or device trying to talk to a central hub, which doesn't exist anymore, each individual device acts as its own mini tower.
Oh, interesting. So they bounce off each other.
Exactly. A device talks directly to the ones closest to it, passing the signal along the chain until it reaches the command center. And they pair that continuous communication loop with real-time drone mapping.
To see the collapsed structures.
Right. And then they deploy these highly sensitive seismic listening devices. It's essentially acoustic radar designed to detect faint heartbeats under tons of concrete. The tech is quite literally serving as their eyes, ears, and voice.
It is incredible what those devices can do. But, I mean, every single one of those seismic sensors, the drones, the mesh radios, they all run on physical hardware.
Yes, they do.
Which means they're vulnerable to the physical supply chain.
And that supply chain is looking incredibly fragile this morning. The hardware keeping those rescuers connected is currently under a severe geopolitical threat.
Right. We need to unpack this widening conflict in the Gulf. Just reporting the details we have from the briefings, Iran's Revolutionary Guard announced they launched joint missile and drone operations targeting U.S. military sites in Kuwait and Bahrain.
That includes a major airbase and the U.S. Fifth Fleet headquarters.
Right, and this was a direct response to the U.S. conducting strikes on Iranian missile and drone storage sites over reported ceasefire violations. Now, air raid sirens did go off, and defenses engaged, but U.S. officials are reporting no American casualties or major damage.
And we are seeing the UAE and Kuwait condemning the attacks.
Yeah. But looking at the broader economic fallout, this directly threatens the Strait of Hormuz. That is the choke point where roughly a fifth of the world's oil passes. So the question for you, looking at all this, why does a military conflict in the Gulf matter to, say, an AI startup in Silicon Valley trying to build a new chatbot?
Well, the connection really highlights the hidden, fragile dependencies of the whole tech world. We talk about artificial intelligence like it's just this magic code floating in the ether.
Right, the cloud.
Exactly. But it is not. AI requires massive, energy-hungry data centers. And building those centers requires a staggeringly complex global supply chain for microchips.
Which rely on very physical processes.
Right. Silicon fabrication demands massive, incredibly stable energy grids to superheat raw materials. Furthermore, the shipping lanes required to move those highly sensitive semiconductor components are easily disrupted.
So a spike in insurance premiums or shipping delay out of the Gulf ripples outward immediately.
Immediately, it hits the global economy, stalls the manufacturing pipelines, and basically throttles the hardware that the entire AI boom desperately needs.
An energy and shipping bottleneck in the Middle East directly chokes the computing power available in the West.
Yes, the entire industry relies on these single global choke points. And that vulnerability is the exact reason we are suddenly seeing this massive corporate arms race to secure alternative AI hardware.
Yeah, I saw Samsung's announcement. They just unveiled a plan to invest 1,000 trillion won.
That is roughly 648 billion US dollars.
Wait, 648 billion with a B, over $500 billion.
Yes. It is a staggering number. It's a decade-long plan spanning semiconductors, AI data centers, and robotics. And a major piece of their strategy is to decentralize away from South Korea's capital region.
So they're moving operations.
Yeah, pushing advanced manufacturing down to the southwest of the country. They are trying to build out a robust, diversified infrastructure that can actually survive regional disruptions.
And it isn't just Samsung making these massive defensive plays. Qualcomm is reportedly negotiating an $8 to $10 billion buyout of the AI chip startup Tenstorrent.
Which is led by the legendary chip designer Jim Keller, by the way.
Right. Pair that buyout with Qualcomm's recent purchase of the AI software company Modular, and they are committing over $14 billion to challenge NVIDIA's dominance.
Because the industry is desperately trying to break free from single points of failure. Right now, NVIDIA is the undisputed dominant supplier for AI hardware.
If something disrupts their specific supply chain, the whole global AI rollout slows down.
Exactly. Samsung and Qualcomm are spending hundreds of billions to build alternative ecosystems. They want to make sure enterprise buyers aren't entirely reliant on one company or, one vulnerable strait in the Gulf.
The scale of this infrastructure is just massive. But eventually, the billions spent dodging choke points in the Gulf funnel straight down into the apps in a middle schooler's pocket.
It all trickles down.
And that collision between advanced technology and physical reality is creating an absolute headache for educators right now.
Yeah, the classroom is where all this abstract global technology suddenly becomes highly personal.
Look at New York City. 29 of the 51 city council members just signed a letter pushing for a 2-year moratorium on AI use in the nation's largest school system.
2 whole years.
Yeah. They're citing massive privacy fears, specifically concerning how AI vendors collect biometric data, behavioral data, and emotion detection. And they're also pointing out potential risks to cognitive development.
But then, over in Illinois, lawmakers took a totally different approach to technology.
Right. They just approved a statewide bell-to-bell cell phone ban for K-8 students, with a bit of flexibility for high schools. It really feels like we're treating technology in schools the way we treat junk food.
Junk food. How so? We know the ingredients are absolutely everywhere, but we are frantically trying to figure out how to keep it out of the cafeteria.
That junk food analogy is actually spot on. What is deeply revealing here is the contrast in how these two entities are trying to regulate. New York City is trying to pause the future.
By hitting the brakes on AI.
Right, because they genuinely do not understand the safeguards yet. And honestly, Emotion detection in a classroom isn't just a creepy concept. It is the unregulated harvesting of a minor's biometric
A
responses.
complete unknown for kids.
Exactly the opposite of what Illinois is doing. Illinois isn't legislating the future. They are managing the present.
Because the cell phone is a known quantity.
Right. We know exactly how it distracts. And the Illinois law contains a really brilliant piece of nuance. The enforcement deliberately excludes fines, suspensions, expulsions, or any police involvement.
I noticed that. So if a kid brings a phone to class and gets caught, they aren't facing an out-of-school suspension. No. The legislators recognize that harsh punitive punishments for screen time often just exacerbate existing social and disciplinary disparities.
So they just take the distraction away.
Exactly. They're attempting to remove the digital distraction without punishing the student in a way that harms their permanent educational record.
But if the largest school district in the country can't figure out a coherent AI policy, it is really no surprise that state and federal governments are suffering from massive regulatory whiplash.
The gap between policy and practice is definitely widening.
And while lawmakers argue over the rules, hackers are aggressively taking advantage of the chaos.
Yeah, the policy debate is completely divorced from the active threat landscape.
Look at Colorado as an example. They had this landmark, first-in-the-nation Artificial Intelligence Act set to take effect this week. It was supposed to place a strict duty of care on developers to actively prevent algorithmic discrimination.
Which was a huge deal.
But at the literal last minute, the governor signed a replacement bill that guts it. It repeals that duty of care, strips the risk management requirements, delays everything to 2027, and replaces it with a very light disclosure framework.
Or just completely scaled back.
Right. Meanwhile, at the federal level, the White House just issued a new executive action aimed at tightening security around advanced AI. Reports say they are asking OpenAI to stagger the rollout of its next major model to a small set of trusted partners.
So we are simultaneously stepping on the gas and the brake.
Exactly. I mean, the White House wants controlled leadership, while states back away from holding developers accountable. It's a paradox.
Well, the contradiction stems from the philosophical difficulty of the technology itself. Lawmakers are trapped debating these abstract principles, like what does a duty of care actually mean for a neural network that teaches itself?
Or how do you legally define discrimination in a data set of 3 trillion words?
It is incredibly difficult to legislate, but while they debate frameworks for 2027, the foundational tech we rely on today is actively bleeding.
The cyber alerts in today's briefing are severe.
They really are. Cybersecurity researchers just uncovered an exploit called For-to-Bleed. Attackers have successfully harvested login credentials for over 86,000 Fortinet firewalls across 194 countries.
Wait, a firewall is supposed to be the locked front door? How are they breaking 86,000 of them?
Well, they aren't just breaking the door down, they are altering the lock. They compromise the device and turn it into a silent listener.
So it doesn't trigger an alarm.
Right. The firewall just sits there passively harvesting the credentials of every single remote worker logging into the VPN, building a master list of keys.
That is terrifying for literally any company relying on remote work.
And the federal alerts are even more urgent. CISA, that's the Federal Cybersecurity Agency, issued mandatory patch deadlines today for 2 massive flaws. First, a severity 9.3 flaw in PTC Windchill software that attackers are already exploiting in the wild.
Okay, severity 9.3 is bad. What's the second one?
A critical flaw in Cisco Unified Communications Manager. This one is entirely remote, requires absolutely no authentication, and it allows an attacker to write arbitrary files to the system.
When you say write arbitrary file, what does that actually look like for the attacker?
Writing arbitrary files means you aren't just reading stolen data, you are fundamentally altering the machine's core instructions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If I can remotely drop an arbitrary file onto your server, I can insert a script that says, make me the absolute system administrator. And the system just blindly obeys the new rule. It is total takeover.
So you don't even need a stolen key. You just rewrite the building's blueprint to say you own the place.
Essentially, yes.
And here's where this all connects back to our earlier conversation. That Cisco Unified Communications Manager. That is the exact system that underpins the phones and collaboration tools at thousands of organizations,
Yeah.
including the very school districts that are currently arguing over cell phone bans and AI moratoriums.
The irony is brutal. Schools are spending their time debating how to protect kids from a future AI chatbot, while the actual physical phone system the school runs on today has a critical vulnerability actively being exploited by hackers.
The technology is just vastly outpacing our ability to secure it, let alone intelligently regulate it.
Without a doubt.
Okay, after all of this heavy news about fragile digital systems, bleeding data, political gridlock, and, global conflict over silicon chips, let's step away from the machines for a minute.
I think we all need that.
Let's talk about a system that is incredibly resilient, one that doesn't need a firmware patch. Let's talk about human biology.
A pivot to human capability is exactly what this briefing needs right now.
Because there is a genuine, undeniable bright spot in public health today. A landmark study led by Queen Mary University of London and Cancer Research UK just released their findings on England's school-based HPV vaccination program. And the results are nothing short of staggering.
I was reading this. It's amazing.
Between 2020 and 2024, for women aged 20 to 24 where vaccine coverage hit nearly 90%, the cervical cancer death rate was zero.
Literal
Zero. The predictive models expected dozens of deaths in that specific demographic, and it fell to zero. They estimate the program has saved around 200 lives so far, and that number is going to climb sharply over the next 2 decades.
That is just incredible news.
It is incredibly joyous to read about a quiet physical medical intervention started years ago that is now measurably, definitively keeping human beings alive.
It is a profound testament to biological resilience. When we give the human immune system the right tools, its ability to defend itself is unparalleled by any digital firewall.
And speaking of unparalleled physical capability, the internet is absolutely buzzing over the World Cup today.
Oh, yeah. The new format is really shaking things up.
The new expanded 4018 format means we have a brand new round of 32 starting. Tiny Cape Verde is making history as the smallest nation ever to reach the knockouts, and England is facing the Democratic Republic of Congo.
But the biggest story is still Messi.
It is always Lionel Messi. He came off the bench, curled in a free kick, and led Argentina past Jordan. It is his 19th career World Cup goal, setting a new tournament record, and he is the first player ever to score in 7 consecutive World Cup matches.
The man is just defying athletic aging in real time on a global stage.
He really is.
And honestly, he provides the perfect context for the final piece of data in our briefing today.
How so?
Well, we have spent this entire session talking about aging hardware, replacing old tech, pouring billions into upgrading server racks. Society generally operates on this long-held assumption that our biological hardware, specifically human cognitive sharpness, inevitably fades as we get older.
Right, the standard narrative is that your body slows down and your brain slows down.
Exactly. We assume the brain peaks in our 20s and then slowly degrades. But a new 3-year study published in Nature's Scientific Reports just entirely shattered that assumption.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They studied nearly 4,000 adults, ranging in age from 19 all the way up to 94, and they proved that brain health can functionally improve at any age.
Wait, so a 90-year-old can actively make their brain sharper, not just slow the decline, but actually improve.
Actively improve. And it doesn't require a $648 billion corporate investment either.
Just a bit of time.
With just 5 to 15 minutes a day of structured brain training, healthy habits, and coaching, people in their 90s improved their cognitive sharpness at roughly the exact same pace as people 5 or 6 decades younger than them.
15 minutes a day to upgrade your own hardware. That's amazing.
It is, and the most fascinating detail in the study is that the people who started with the absolute lowest baseline scores made the biggest, fastest gains of anyone.
So having more room to grow actually helps.
Yes, neuroplasticity thrives on a steep learning curve. The group with the most ground to make up actually moved the fastest. The human brain is just a wildly resilient piece of machinery.
If we pull all of these threads together, the contrast today is pretty amazing. We started by looking at how we are fighting 92,000-acre wildfires with predictive data models because the physical planes can't fly. We explored corporations spending literally hundreds of billions of dollars to build decentralized microchips just to survive vulnerable shipping lanes in the Gulf. We looked at the messy reality of schools trying to ban cell phones while their own cybersecurity infrastructure is silently harvested by hackers.
We are pouring limitless capital and energy into upgrading our fragile artificial systems.
Yet this final study proves that the human brain, our native biological hardware, can be upgraded at age 90 with just a few minutes of effort a day.
It really puts our obsession with tech into perspective.
It does. Which leaves a final thought for you to mull over as you go about your day. We have seen how raw physical reality refuses to just be a backdrop for our digital lives. But if our biological brains can physically rewire and improve in our 90s, and we are simultaneously building AI models that process data millions of times faster than we do,
It's a wild collision course.
what happens when those two trajectories truly merge? Are we vastly underestimating our own biological potential by rushing to outsource so much of our cognitive effort to the very artificial intelligence systems we are currently struggling to secure and regulate?
That tension is going to define the next decade of human progress, I have no doubt.
We'll leave you to think on that. Take 15 minutes and invest in your own mind today. Whether you are tracking wildfires or just trying to navigate a world full of screens, there is always something worth smiling about. Stay curious, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.